Ladies and gentlemen, José Daenen. Off you go.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Short introduction about myself. José Daenen. I've been working for air traffic control for about 28 years now, so it's been the greater part of my life. To me, the honor to be the real actual first presentation, of course. I'll give you a quick overview of what we do at Air Traffic Control the Netherlands. And of course, the Control Room Summit and Light give me the chance to talk about the things we did at the Control Tower last year to make some more improvements. Next slide, please. Control rooms, of course, but what do we do? 24/7 delivery of air traffic control in the skies over the Netherlands. We have several towers. The one at your left is the Schiphol Tower. There is a second tower at Schiphol because they have the faraway runway for you, those who flew in probably not yesterday, but the day before. They came under that runway. We also provide air traffic control for the south of the country, in Beek, and in the north, and of course Rotterdam. It's not just the towers. Of course, the main tower is the main attraction of Schiphol. We also handle traffic. Let's give me the okay. Also do radar, of course, and there's a few from our control room from the tower. What we do 24/7, 365 days a year on every kind of circumstances. We handle roughly over 500,000 movements at Schiphol itself. Of course, we are reliable for some more airspace upper as well. We do about 600,000 movements, some few more flights at Rotterdam. Currently, we're the busiest airport in Europe, handling this amount of traffic. We have about 1,000 people working at the air traffic control LVNL, which are about 350 air traffic controllers divided all over the control rooms, of course. Okay. The reason I'm here, the need for change, was we needed some more working positions. The original tower, the main tower at Schiphol, was delivered back in the early 90s. And back in 92, we handled about 300,000 movements, and we figured, okay, we could do this with 4 people doing this, or 6. So we had about 8 working positions. So 6 people could work, and 2 spare positions in case something happened, because we need contingency, of course. But what happened? Traffic increased. We need to position more working positions. So we had a lack of spare positions. So if one position would have an incident or fall out, so we really had an impact on traffic already. Busy and noisy working environment. Of course, providing 6 people within the space, or 8 people, would of course make more noise. And on the left corner, you would see an example of a strip, how we handle aircraft. That's a small digital holder, which you can insert a small piece of paper in, and that piece of paper and that holder would represent an aircraft. And that would move from one position to another one. So the whole day you would hear clicking of the metal box moving around, so that produces a lot of noise as well. And of course, paper always works. It's trustworthy, and you can drop it on the floor, it doesn't break, but it doesn't give you extra information about the aircraft or whatever you want to know and put in some safety features. I mean, it would represent what type of aircraft it is, what call sign it has, and what the destination was, and all that kind of stuff we really need, but we needed some more extra safety features to implement as well. So the change was we need more space, and the change was we would move from paper to electronic flight strips. So this is a picture of the old control room. You could see 8 working positions. Of course, originating from the early 90s, so equipment was also from that era, producing a lot of heat, of course, due to the fact it was older computers. And we could see that within the perimeters of the windows, there would still be some more room left to make some changes. Took, of course, some convincing of the crew because they thought we needed a complete new tower, but that was way too much to invest. An extra spare position was also already made, so 9 positions in total, and we figured out a plan to make 15 working positions. It would mean an outer ring and an inner ring as an end result. So it took about a year and a half from really actually making the decision to do this and finish it. And of course, the working position needed to be upgraded in that time. The flight strips needed to be implemented. We had to have training done for the air traffic controllers because it is a new system. It takes, of course, some adjustments. And of course, the main thing was no interruption for the traffic because 24/7, like I said before, and we also do night flights, so no interference with traffic whatsoever was promised to our customers. And of course, first time right. There's no time for errors, there's no time for failure. Once we implemented it, it must work. And also the working position upgrade with no impact. And the challenge was, of course, the existing technical infrastructure was over 20 years old, so it came up with a lot of surprises, you can imagine. So this was the approach we made. It was a classic 3D design of the working position in the control room, and we did a virtual reality and 3D design, and then we decided to make an operational mock-up of one working position and one working position, and so on and so on. So that would give the technical guys also a chance to work on it outside of the control room. It was like training a Formula 1 car and changing the positions because you will see later on in the presentation, we had limited time to do this operation. And we also made a full one-on-one mock-up within the building we have at Schiphol East to convince the controllers to see the possibilities because we're kind of not eager on moving forward, so it takes some convincing to take controllers on to the next step because it's all about safety, and if you make a change in environment, you will change the safety feeling of the controllers. So we made the design, of course, classic 3D design, and we created a room in there. So first step to convince the controllers and also looking at the possibility for ourselves. Then we made the operational mock-up of one working position, controlling working position. So how would it look like with the new screens, with the new electronic flight strips and so on. Also to get the controllers on board and get them to be enthusiastic about the new working positions. It created for them a lot of more working space and reduced, of course, noise with the older computers. Then we made for the technical guys a technical mock-up of one working position so they could start training to dismantle the old working position and put in place the next one. And they did it several times to see if they would come up to any hiccups or get any trouble implementing the new working position. Then we took a couple of guys together and in one of the areas in the building at Schiphol East, we recreated with simple tools, just a couple of tables, how big could it get and what kind of positions could we create. And so we came up that the possibility was there for 15 working positions. And then we made a full one-on-one mock-up of the control tower. It's a used investment, of course, but it really helped us to get onto the next level and get all the controllers on board and make them really enthusiastic about this fact. Got a short clip on this, how it's working and how we built this.
345 traffic, 2 miles, final without delay.
So this gave the guys over there an opportunity to see how we could move around stuff and how we could get the new positions up there. See, normally the regular tower is used 24/7, so, and it's 80 meters high, so we had to figure out a plan how to do this right in one time. Then the execution phase, infrastructure upgrade, so the difficult part for the technical guys. Like I said before, the original equipment is over 20 years old, and all the holes were drilled just in one place, so a lot of wiring was done, and they had a way to figure out, okay, how we're going to do this wiring and how we're going to put this equipment back up there with all the new wiring and still keep the main system going, because we were in the transition of doing that. So we had to look for space within the tower, of course, and get our data center upgraded and get a new redundant network, because our policy is we all have redundancy necessary, so everything is triple redundant to safeguard all the safety features we have in there in place. And of course, dismantling all the old infrastructure also meant a lot of surprises along the way. Then the big difficult situation for them was that replacements of the working position was only done during the night. We have a spare control tower, a small one. We used to do air traffic control in it before, but it only has 4 working positions. But what we did was that the night crew started up the emergency tower so they could work there, and that gave the guys that did the reconstructioning the possibility to do the work over there. So that also meant they could only work between 11 and 5 local time, because at 5 local time everything had to be cleaned and had to be ready for the controllers to be working there at 6 local time again. We did this in about 130 nights. So remodeling, putting the equipment in place, and it works without any problems for the customer whatsoever. Of course, we divided this up into 10 individual phases, and every phase meant, for the controllers when they come up there in the morning, a complete new situation, because it would mean the old working position would be there, new working position would be in place, and then moving on, so in the next couple of weeks. The problem with the controllers also would mean that they were used to having a certain set of line of sight, looking outside, and their working position would be changed, so they had to adapt almost on a weekly basis on a new environment and looking at air traffic and also at the aircraft and repositioning also their cells and where they were. The replacement of the working position during the night, of course, and every morning we would get the handover and everything would have been checked and see if everything was working and everybody would be happy with the way things were. And of course, working at the right side here is the smaller tower, which only had 4 working positions, so it would mean a little bit more crowded dealing with the traffic. So then 11 o'clock, everything would be set up. And that means being set up every night over and over again during the weekdays. So for them, a lot of extra work, because you couldn't leave it there and you had to rebuild it every night again. And of course, clean it up and store it back where it should be stored. So that also means you had to walk down several steps to get into the storage room, to get all the stuff and bring it back in the morning. So for the working guys, they only had roughly about 4 hours of work every night to do so. Then you will see a small image of one of the pictures that says we're working on it, and it's a mixture of old positions and new positions. And on the right side, you would see the introduction of the first new working position, still with the paper strips, of course, because we had to finish all the positions first and then introduce the system. And the end result, there's a short clip as well, but the end result was that we had first the outer ring finished, which has 11 positions. And if everything worked and the flight strip worked as well, we could produce the inner ring as well, which gave us then 15 working positions starting 20th of April. Of course, this means we had to have some reduction on traffic because all the controllers had to get adjusted to the new system. We planned about 6 weeks to get everyone in, the about 100 controllers that are air traffic controllers and ground controllers about 40. So it means we had to train about 150 people to get used to the system and adapt it. And we explained to our customers that we would need about 6 weeks, and we had a reduction of traffic for about 10 to 15%. But instead, the crew was very happy. We had some good training done, and they had done it in about 4 weeks to get adjusted to the new electronic flight system as well. There you see the image, outer ring, and I'll get back to the last one. This is the inner ring. It's elevated a little bit. The actual air traffic controllers, which handle the aircraft departing and landing, would be working here, so they could oversee the assistants and the ground controllers to get them a better view. And they get this working position is at about 85 meters, so you could see a control room, which is usually surrounded by walls, and our control room is, of course, only surrounded by glass. You could look outside, of course. And then the lower ring, which the colleagues do the startup of the aircraft, and of course the taxiing of the aircraft, which are a little bit closer to the ground. Smart clip again, but what we did. So the biggest challenge now is, of course, using the electronic flight strips and making more safety enhancements and more features for the air traffic controllers and ground controllers to help them with their traffic and help them with the traffic load, of course. The idea is for the coming years that we can still grow at Schiphol to grow forward to 540,000 movements. So that's a lot of traffic. That means on a daily basis in the summertime, that's about 1,600 aircraft handling a day. In the wintertime, we are talking about now, it's about 1,400 movements. So for us, a big step forward, going from paper to digital, and a big step forward that we are able to increase working positions and not have any hindering for the customer, of course, and also for the surrounding areas that we work with, so we could use preferential runway usage and also give them a benefit of these new changes we had. So very proud to be here and to introduce that step forward for LVNL as an air traffic control provider, and happy to take any questions you have.
Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I don't know about you, but I heard the room go quiet and a few intakes of breath when we started seeing the wooden mock-up in the middle of the atrium there. You guys went to a lot of trouble to make sure that change was managed for your staff.
Yeah.
I've got to be careful what I ask next. Was the whole project essentially a good experience for you?
Yes, absolutely. For us, it's a total new approach to take this huge step forward and like building this mock-up. We also did it on in the past we did it on a smaller scale, and that meant a lot of trouble.
Okay.
So we took a giant leap forward in taking this step and making this huge investment to get everybody on board, the 150 controllers that make use of this whole thing, and also the whole company, and also our customers. We could take them in, and it's difficult to show them what's going on in the actual tower because it is busy and it is difficult. And now we could take our customers within this situation in the mock-ups, and it's a one-on-one effect. So everybody would see the change as well with on the sound themselves.
Yeah, I think I recognise the flightstrips application as well. Is it from Austria by any chance?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes, I thought I recognised it, and I was involved not in the air traffic control side, but on the public safety side for that company. And I remember some of the early discussions around the flight strips and how difficult it was to get it accepted by the air traffic control operators. I mean, why do you think it was? You know, what was the big difference between the paper and the early incarnations of the flight strips? Because they weren't always like this, the electronic flight strips.
No, that's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
Our first idea was to implement those things, the electronic flight strips, about 10 years ago. But then the crisis hit, and we had decided not to do it. But the need for change was still there because it gives you so much more advantage using the electronic flight strip instead of the paper strips.
Yeah.
But the controller is used to it. You can hold it, you can touch it. I mean, you can pass it around. It's always there. It never fails. I mean, if anything happens, the paper strip will always be there. And in case of emergency, he can still make a note on a piece of paper. So the convincement of this system being reliant and doing what it needs to do, that was a whole process in itself, of course, and to get everyone on board as well. And we let controllers also decide on how we can use the system and what system do we need and what input do we need for that.
Well, I think that's a lesson to all the suppliers in the room. If you're not already really hot on your change management with the customer, you really should take notice of what was going on there. That was quite incredible. Anybody got any questions? Oh, Mr. Jackson's got a question. All right, let me just go to the back. David, that should be switched on.
Thanks, Peter. Jose, I think as a leader of a critical control room, what you've achieved there in version 2 of your control tower is absolutely hugely significant. My question's about the future. What does Schiphol Tower version 3 look like? And thinking about what we heard from Sam in Perth a short while ago, do you see yourselves following the same way as the Swedes, where they've gone to remote tower operations and the controllers aren't actually on the airfield, but many hundreds or even thousands of kilometres away, using virtual and augmented reality to recreate that experience for the controllers whilst not actually on site on the airfield?
Very good question, very good question. Well, as a matter of fact, we have the regional units transferring to Schiphol to do remote handling. So what we are doing for the north of the country, Eelde, and the south of the country, Maastricht, in 2021 we will implement remote tower. So that means that the handling of the aircraft will be done at Schiphol for traffic that is 200 kilometers further away. So we will implement that. The other tower, one of the ideas is that we have the West Tower, and we want to implement that in the Central Tower, and we will do this on a remote way as well, because the distance is very far away, you can't see it really well. And talking about the 3.0 version of the tower, we will do a lot more with artificial intelligence, a lot more with camera work, so the controller will be aided much more and reduce work pressure, but also machine and human will interface a lot more.
Okay, very good. A very fine question insofar as the one I had written down next. So that's taken away my last question. Does anyone else have any questions? Yeah, good. I'm glad we're getting some questions. I'll come to you in just a moment, sir. Let's come to the back first. Who are you and where do you come from, sir?
Hello, my name's Paul. I'm from England. I'm probably the only architect in this room, I think. My challenge is to design for my client an industrial process control room, and I'm interested to know what your thoughts were on the environment that you created at your control tower, like lighting, like acoustics, like glare from the windows, for the operator's comfort, please.
Yeah, that also was a big challenge because we used the same room, but we divided in a different section. So noise is, of course, a huge factor, and also the glare you would use on the electronic flight strip system would be a nuisance if that would give any problems. Like I said, it's all glass, so the huge challenge is daylight. A daylight situation for a screen where a controller could still look at it and the sun would shine in from any direction because it changes, of course, during the day, and you start in the east and then it would shift and going down in the west. The glare issue was a huge problem to work this out. Also, looking to the future and getting more people up in the control room, it's also a challenge for us. How can we get noise directed on the good way? We ask controllers now to use headsets more than in just a single microphone because it spreads noise if you talk louder, and it receives noise, of course, as well. So also for the controller, it would mean some adaptation to get the best out of the new working position. What we did was add foil on the windows to reduce glare, of course. See with the deliverance of the monitors for the electronic flight system, how bright could they be, and how low could we set them if it was night? So lots of challenges, but for now we've been working for this summer and the fall and the winter. It's working out perfectly. Everybody's really happy with the way things are right now.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much indeed. There was a question down here, wasn't there? Again, where do you come from? Who are you?
Good morning, Jose. My name is Jörg from Frankfurt Airport. And could you say something about the cooling concept, which maybe is a great challenge, a small place where all the working positions are?
Yeah, we installed, because it was 20 years old, there was only one air conditioning system and a backup system. But also one of the big challenges was, of course, cooling because of the sun during the summer periods and the equipment. But what we did is we installed a lot of equipment below the tower, or well, within the tower, but several floors lower. So the heating from the systems would be on another working position. So that was one solution. And installing an extra air conditioning unit, of course, was the other solution to work. We had a hot summer, 40 degrees this year, and previous years everybody was complaining about the heat, but this was the first year that everybody was happy and start wearing not shorts but long pants to be warm.
Very good. We have another question here, again, perhaps from Frankfurt.
Yeah, Frankfurt Airport, Frederick, my name. One question was like talking about change management with like 150 controllers. When did you decide to include them in the process? Like, because we have a similar project right now at the Frankfurt Airport where we have to change the controller position, working position, and we have always a struggle like with involving like older people. Like we have a big demographic, and to get everyone involved so everyone like accepts the solution in the end or the end result. Yeah, how did you manage that? Besides the mock-ups, like were they involved in like designing the flight strip system, or is it like from scratch or something?
Yeah, from scratch. So we involved them in remodeling. It took a lot of time and effort because in the beginning the sentiment was we needed a complete new tower, but Schiphol is congested and there is no room to build an extra tower or another one. And I think the cost for a new tower would be way over 150 million euros. So not a good investment. And also with the previous question, looking forward and looking into the future, that would be remote tower. Why would we still invest in that kind of money? Coming back to your question, we decided in the really early stage, not with the flight strips only, but also with the remodeling of the tower, to get the controllers in a really early stage. So it takes longer, of course, because you have to go back and forth and back to the drawing board and keep everybody happy. And also for us, the demographic issue was also a problem because the older controllers were thinking, okay, if everything changes, will I still be able to get my license or be able to control the traffic? And the young ones always are eager and do more and more and more. So I think we came out fairly beyond the middle. So I think we got what we wanted. And the good perspective was that within a couple of weeks, seeing this and building the mock-up, it helped everyone. So it's amazing to see we're about 7-8 months ahead, how easily, looking back, it was adapted. But it took us a year and a half also to get the controllers on board and then get this situation. So my advice would be get them on board really early if you have the chance.
Brilliant. Jose, thank you very much indeed. I'd love to take more questions. I think there are, but please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good.